So, can everyone from Pebble in the room please stand up just for a few minutes? So just to give you an idea of who works for Pebble, because we've grown the team a lot since last year. So on behalf of all of us, we'd like to extend a very warm welcome. It's amazing to have you all here with us. It's been a year since last time we did this. It was very useful last year. We know it's going to be even more useful this year. And I wanted to start by telling you a little bit, sharing a few interesting trivia. So there are 100 developers today in this room. A little more, we had some last-minute enrollments. And you're coming from 14 countries today, which is pretty awesome. So I'm from Team Europe. Anyone else on Team Europe? Cool. Team Europe is going to win at some point. We also have another big team at Pebble. It's Team Canada. I know we have a few Team Canada. Yeah. Anyone from Australia, New Zealand? Yes, we do. And people from Africa? I don't know if we have that. We need to work on this. Okay, but it's amazing to have all of you here in the room, and more than ever, you are all very experienced developers. So who has at least one app in the App Store? Amazing. Who has more than 5 apps in the App Store? We have a few. Paul, you can raise your hand. Where is he? So yeah, it's amazing, and we've gone a long way. Actually, since last year, when we did not have an app store, you guys have written over 4,000 apps that are now available in the store. That's a pretty amazing statistics. But it wouldn't be as amazing if those apps have not been downloaded. And they are being downloaded a lot. Those apps have been downloaded 6 million times now, which is another pretty impressive score. And even better, they've been used over 100 million hours. So I did a little math. 108 million hours, actually. It's over 12,000 years of evolution. So I think we went a long way since last year. And that all started actually in January when we announced and released the App Store to everyone. So thank you a lot for that. Another interesting fact that I thought you'd be interested in is that most users engage with apps at least with 3 different apps on a weekly basis. So that means there's a lot of interest for coming from users to discover new apps and try new apps and to keep on using them once they've discovered them. And 15% of our users actually try at more than 20 apps, which is also pretty amazing. And all of this is possible thanks to all of you. So a big thank you is in order. So while we're doing news, something that I think is pretty interesting to all of us here in the room is that Pebble is now available in retail sales and direct sales in the US, in UK, in Canada. We announced this week Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg, and we're starting to do Scandinavia, so Denmark, Norway, Sweden, so that's also pretty impressive. And we've actually shipped Pebble in 150 countries, so you can pretty much say that Pebble is available in the entire world through our website. We think it's very important to expand the reach of your apps, and that's our part of the job, and we're working hard on it. I know some of you had very interesting conversation last night about this with some of our distribution team. We'd love to know what country to go to. If you have suggestions, you can also come talk to us and tell us about it. What difference a year make? What happened since last year? So in February, we released the first official version of firmware 2.0 with the iOS app. And since then, we've done a few other releases, so 2.1 to 2.4. They were mostly user improvements. As far as developer go, we've also improved the documentation. We've improved PebbleKit on iOS and Android quite a lot, especially PebbleKit JavaScript, data logging. Those new components were refined over those months. But recently, we've started releasing new APIs. And I'm sure you saw the Compass API, which came out something like 3 or 4 weeks ago, which was a very important release for us. It's one of those things that many of you came to me last year and said, what's going on with that compass? So please come talk to me if you have other APIs you'd like to see. Emoji was also added in the firmware. That was also a very important user request. And we're not stopping there. This week, we announced a new API. I'm sure you saw the new firmware 2.6 with support for activity trackers and background worker. So that's also something that all of you requested very dearly, is we want apps that run, but not only when they're in the foreground, we want also to be running apps in the background. And so that's something that we announced this week. And I will be going into more detail on this new API and showing you how to use it today and explaining what you can do with it. But we've not just released new APIs. We've also worked to improve Pebble. And despite the fact that the Pebbles that are in the fields are getting older, and some Pebbles are now almost a year and a half old, getting close to 2 years old, we're increasing the average battery life of Pebble users by 10% from version 2.1 to version 2.5. We did that because we worked on the Bluetooth stack, we worked on the firmware, we worked on the display, we made every component a little smarter, we made sure that battery usage was really optimized. But we didn't do it just on our own. We also reached out to some of you who have extremely popular apps that a lot of users use. And we said, hey, here are some tips that you could use to improve battery life. And thanks to your help improving battery life for users, we've actually improved the average battery life of a Pebble user. So another thank you here. And I'm very happy to say that we'll be extending this to more and more apps during the developer retreat, and we'll talk a lot about battery life, and we'll be sharing tips on how to improve it. Something else that we've been doing is improving connectivity. We introduced last year the PebbleKit JavaScript framework, and one of the potential problems is that the apps that use JavaScript at some point would lose the connection with the phone because the mobile app would get killed on the phone, the JavaScript would not run, and that you would not be able, for example, to get the weather from the internet. So from version 2.1 to version 2.5, we've managed to increase the time, the percentage of time that the Pebble is connected by 50%. We'll never get to 100%. We're getting close to it because at some point the user is going to leave his phone on his desk and walk out of the room. But we're getting really close to the maximum time that's possible. And that's also something that we're doing for you because we want to make the app better for the user in the end. So there's more coming, of course. 2.6 was just released. And this week at the Dev Retreat, we're going to release the first version of firmware 2.7 with a new API called the Wakeup API, which goes hand in hand with the background worker, but for different type of background use. And I'll be covering this API this morning too. So you know how to use it, and as soon as you walk out of this room, you'll be able to try it and use it for your apps. So a little agenda of this morning presentation. We're going to take about 45 minutes total. I'm going to tell you a little bit about those new APIs. For those of you who may not have had time to look at the new background worker, I'll explain how it works, what you can do with it. We'll look at the Wakeup API and the other APIs that were added in 2.62. Then I'll talk about the activities that we're going to be offering this weekend, and there are lots of them, and I want to make sure that you all understand what they are, and then you can choose whether you want to spend time in this room listening to us or in the other room and working and talking to people and hacking on your stuff, and that's completely up to you. And then finally, I'll share some logistics detail like Wi-Fi password and things like that. It's usually useful. So what about new APIs? So something that came out in 2.6 that is new is direct access to the frame buffer. Who saw that in the release notes? Great. See, people read the release notes. We need to keep making those. We have that debate often. But it's not very well documented. The example is not here yet, and the reason why is because this is all coming to you this afternoon. Basically, the frame buffer API gives you a way to capture the frame buffer and to get direct access to the bitmap on the screen. You can use it in combination with the usual UI function, so the layers, but also the graphics drawing function that you know. And so you can, for example, do a background by directly controlling the bits and then drawing on top of it. That's all possible. And this is something that we will present this afternoon in our talks on graphics. I'll tell you more about that talk, but it's going to be very interesting, and that's one of the things that we'll be presenting. So I won't talk too much about it here. You're going to have to wait a little more to find out about this one. The other big API in 2.6 was the background API. So let's talk a little bit about this API, what it is. It's an API that's designed to build activity trackers. And I will repeat that a few times. It's an API that is designed to build activity trackers. That means it's not designed to build timers or stuff running in the background all the time. That is not an activity tracker, and I'll explain why. It's separate. It allows you to embed in your PBW file a second binary, a second executable file that will be run in the background when you ask the system to start it. So we have the foreground app, and the background worker is the name we give to this second executable. It comes with a few specific constraints. So instead of the usual 24K limit of memory, it only has access to 12 kilobytes of memory. That's because you won't be doing any UI in the background, so we figured we could reduce that space a little bit. And also because we don't have that much memory to give you, so we had to make a choice here. It also comes with a limited set of APIs. So there are some things you cannot do in the background, such as using app message to communicate with the mobile app. So we'll see what other options are available. But the foreground app and the background worker come with a form of inter-process communication that allow you to exchange message from each other. That allows you to build some pretty advanced app, and we already have some good examples on the store. If you haven't tried the Jawbone app or the Misfit app, I strongly encourage you to give it a try. And the Jawbone app developer and VP of software of Jawbone will be with us tonight at the hackathon. So you'll be able to meet him and ask questions if you want to understand more how he implemented it in only 12K of memory. So how do you build an app with a background worker? You start by creating a new folder in your project that's going to be called worker_src. And the new WScript file that we provide with a Pebble project will automatically detect that and build that as a second executable. So I'm not sure everyone is familiar with the WScript file that is included in all Pebble project. If you're using CloudPebble, you're usually not seeing it, but if you're using the command line SDK, you can even modify it. This is just like a make file. Or if you're coming from the Java world, it's your pom.xml or your build.xml for Ant. It's the file that gives instructions on how to compile your app. And so with the new SDK, we will automatically detect when you have that folder, and we'll automatically take all the files in that folder, compile them, and make the second binary with it. If you're using CloudPebble, there's a new option available since yesterday that allows you to, when you create a new file, to say, I want this file to be included in the foreground app or in the background worker. So you can choose that when you add your file. And if you're starting a new project, you can just do Pebble new project -- worker, and we'll generate this basic template with all the files already ready. So once you have this app with the two binary in it, you install it on your Pebble, but by default, the background app is not going to start automatically. To start the background app, you have to call app worker launch, and this call returns a potential error code or success code, depending on how you want to look at it. And you should really check this for errors, because there are a few things that can go wrong. One of them is that the user might be using another activity tracker at the time. And so what happens if you're already running an activity tracker is you're going to get this little pop-up here. Do you want to stop the Misfit activity tracker and launch the app activity tracker instead? And the user will choose whether he agrees to launch the tracker or refuses to launch the tracker. So you may want to start your background worker, but the user may refuse, and you need to be aware of that and plan accordingly. Something to notice here is that this is designed so you can interrupt all day long activity tracker with another activity specific tracker. For example, I like to use the Jawbone app activity tracker on my watch. I use it to count my steps every day. I'm very curious to see how many steps I'm going to make here today. But I also like to swim. And if I go to the swimming pool, I want to make sure that when I'm swimming, I'm using another app that's dedicated to swimming. And we have one too. It's swim.com, available on the store this week. And so when I go for a swim, I start the swim activity tracker. It's going to ask me, do you want to interrupt the Jawbone activity tracker? And when I'm done swimming, in the swimming app, I'm going to say, OK, I'm done. It's going to kill the background worker. And the system is automatically going to restart the one that was running before. So this way, if you need to make an activity tracker that is specific to some type of activity, you can do it. And we expect that that's what a lot of you will need to do. Probably only a few of them will actually make activity trackers that compete with Jawbone or Misfit to run all the times on the watch. If you have any question about this, of course, we'll be happy to answer them. Your application in the foreground can, of course, query the status of its background worker. You can say, is my background worker running? And this way, in the UI, you can show whether you're running or not. If you want to stop it, like I just said, for example, in the swimming example, you want to stop it when the user is done swimming, so you can kill it from the foreground app. So how do you communicate with your background worker? It's a separate process. How do you exchange information? So the background worker and the foreground app are provided with a new type of IPC, inter-process communication, that we call app worker message, which shouldn't be confused with app message. It's a completely different system. But it's based on events. So just like a lot of the Pebble API, you start by subscribing to get those app worker message. And you provide a handler that will be called with a type of message and the actual data of the message. And then you can call app worker send message to actually push the data from the foreground app to the background worker, or the other way around. It works both ways. And so you can use this channel to synchronize some information. For example, in my foreground app, the user says, I'm going to take a 20-minute nap now. And then you can tell the background worker, hey, we should switch from walking mode to sleeping mode. If your algorithm cannot detect that automatically, you can do that. If you need to push statistics, so for example, your background worker may be counting the steps, and you want to update a watch face that will be running in the foreground sometimes, and update that watch face with how many steps were done today. So you can use that mechanism to do that. What's important to note here is that app worker message is limited to 3 bytes. Actually, 3 bytes is wrong. It's 3 16-bit integers of data. And so if you want to send more data, you need to save it in persistent storage. And the foreground app has access to the persistent storage too. They share the same persistent storage. And so you can send a message that says, hey, I updated persistent storage. Go look into it. That's another way to do communication. And then, of course, you may want to communicate with the phone. You want to get data out of your app. So how do you do this? There are 2 strategies here. And those strategies come from the fact that you cannot use app message when you're in the background. You cannot use app message to talk to a JavaScript file when your app is in the background and the foreground app is not running. So what you can do is use data logging from the background. Data logging is a framework that we introduced last year. It's something that is pretty complicated, was pretty complicated to set up on iOS and Android. I think we can say we had a rough start with this one. You'll be happy to know that it works a lot better now. We're using it internally for all of our statistics. A lot of developers are now using it for this type of application. So if you discarded it a year ago, we encourage you to take a new look at it. And you can use this to transfer data from the background to the foreground. That's what the Misfit app is doing for those of you who tried it. If you want another technique, you can use JavaScript. And the way you would do this is the background worker is going to save data into persistent storage. And when it gets close to the maximum amount of data, or at regular interval, it's going to wake the foreground app and say, hey, can you transfer that data? The foreground app is going to pop up on the screen, and it's going to synchronize with the server. But this way, you can empty persistent storage and then continue running in the background. So those are the 2 strategies available to you. And the second strategy is what Jawbone app is doing. So to summarize, the background worker is really an API that's designed to build activity trackers. Again, not designed for other purposes. There can be only one activity tracker running at a time in the background. Very important. Remember that whenever you choose to use background worker, that will have an impact on the user experience that is significant. So think about this before deciding to run stuff in the background. And it's compatible with data logging or PebbleKit JavaScript via persistent storage as an intermediate step. And that is the background worker API. So now I'm sure a few of you are like, that's a nice API, but I'd just like to be able to run a timer, or I have other apps that I'd like to build. And the background worker is not getting it because I don't want to interrupt the step tracker to run something in the background. And so for you, we come up with a new API called Wakeup API. So Wakeup API is about making timers. It's about making your own alarm app. It's about letting the user know that his game is about to start on ESPN and that he needs to turn on the TV. And for that type of use case, you don't need to be running all the time in the background. All you need to do is to tell the user, is to tell the system, hey, you need to wake me up at this time of day. And that is something that Pebble can do quite easily with a lot less memory than having your process run all the time in the background. So Wakeup API lets you request a wake-up call from the system. It's just that simple. And it's perfect for apps like Multitimer. And Matthew, who wrote Multitimer, got early access to this API and ported Multitimer to it. And it will be perfect to all alarm apps and game information, TV information. And I'm sure you'll come up with lots of other interesting use cases. So how do you request a wake-up call? Your application needs to calculate a timestamp in the future, so a Pebble timestamp, so local time, and tell the system, I want to be awakened at this time in the future. So you just call app wake up schedule, the timestamp that you want to be awakened, and a reason parameter that will be passed back to your app so you know why you're being awakened. And this last parameter here, I'll explain it in just a few slides. In return, you get a wake up ID. And this wake up ID is something you can use to cancel a timer or make sure that your timer is still running. Now, how do you receive the wake up call? There are two scenarios. One is your app is currently not running when the event happens. And so if your app is not running, the system is going to start your app and is going to bring your app to the foreground on the watch. And you're going to be able to call app launch reason, a new API, to figure out why you're being started so that you can adjust your UI accordingly. So if you're being started because of the app launch wake up, then you can show a pop-up that says, hey, it's time to do something. But if you're just being launched by the system or by the user, you can do your normal startup procedure. And this API is actually kind of cool because it's useful for the Wakeup API, but it's also useful to know when you're being launched by the phone app. And that's something that a lot of you have requested and that we included in this new app launch API. And once you know that you were awakened by a wake-up call, you can also call app wakeup get launch event. And you will get the wake-up ID. So you pass 2 pointers that will be filled with the wake-up ID and the reason why, the reason which is the parameter that you passed before to the wake-up schedule call. Now, second scenario is that the wake-up call happened while your app is running. And we wanted to give you a way to also process those so that you don't have to run a local timer in your app in parallel to the system timer. And so if a wake-up call expires while your app is running, you can subscribe to the app wake-up service. And you will get a call to your wake-up handler saying, hey, your event just happened. So now there's a last scenario. And the last scenario is, what do we do if the Pebble is off when the wake-up event happens? And so if you set the notify parameter that we saw earlier when you scheduled the call to true, we will show a pop-up to the user when they turn on their Pebble to say, well, your Pebble was off. Wake-up events occurred for those apps. And then the user can restart those apps, and you can give them extra information. And the idea here is that if I have a pill reminder app that tells me to take my pill, I might be an hour late, but it's still useful to know that I missed one of those events. For some other use cases, like just a 3-minute cooking eggs timer, if the Pebble dies in between, then it's probably too late anyway when they turn them back on. So you don't have to set that flag. You decide if you want to get that pop-up when you restart the watch or not. One more little limit is that your app can only schedule up to 8 events. So if you need more, you're going to have to schedule the first 8 events and use one of those to schedule the next ones. And the other limitation is that we wanted to avoid having some kind of wake-up craziness loop on the watch where you would have one app pop up and then another app pop up and then another app pop up and then the first app would pop up back again. So to avoid that kind of nightmare scenarios, you can only schedule one event per minute, or there needs to be a 60 seconds interval, rather, between one event and the next one. So if an app already wants to schedule a wake-up event at 11:00, and you're trying to schedule another wake-up event at 11:00, the app wake-up schedule call will fail, and you will not be able to set it. And then you can choose to reset it at a more appropriate time, and that will depend on your use case. So, for example, if you have an alarm app that wakes you up every time at 7 p.m. from your nap, that's fine. Some people do that. And you have another app that's trying to set up a reminder that the game is going to start at 7 p.m. The game app won't be able to set the timer for 7, but the game app can set it for 6:55 or 6:59. And I think in most scenarios, what makes the most sense is actually to schedule the event a little earlier and start the app. And in your UI, have some kind of countdown. And your countdown will be interrupted by the other alarm, but at least the user will get the message that the event is getting close. Again, that doesn't work too well for cooking eggs. But yeah, we didn't solve that problem. So that's the Wakeup API. It will be available to you today as part of firmware 2.7 beta 1. Is it still beta 1?
We did the first try.
Okay, first try. That's amazing. That's amazing. You have no idea. 2.7 beta 1. So 2.7 beta 1 will be available today to all of you via GitHub. So you'll be able to download it, try it. We really want to get feedback from you on this new API. Tell us what you think. Tell us if it does what you need, because that's really what we care about. And if there are other background use cases that you think about and that are not addressed by one of those two APIs, please come talk to us, because we really want to make sure we give you the tools to build all the experiences that you can think of. And so we think those two cover background pretty well. If we missed something, come talk to us. So that's my little overview of new APIs, and that will be the end of my technical part this year. What I want to dive into a little bit now is the activities that we're going to offer during this developer retreat, because we have some very exciting things planned for you, and I wanted to make sure I could share some of my excitement to see all of you attend them. So this is the schedule that you saw already on the page that was sent this week to all of you in the detailed schedule. We're here somewhere in the middle of this kickoff Thursday morning, and let's see what happens afterwards. And I have another slide with it, and we can certainly post that. And I see people taking pictures. We also have a great Pebble app with the schedule that was tweeted yesterday. Patrick, where are you? Did you make a QR code on your T-shirt so that people can install your app? Okay, so if you search Pebble schedule or Pebble Dev Retreat schedule, what is the name of the app?
It's on the front of the App Store right now. It was recently updated. So if you just
Okay.
go to the app section, it's right there.
Perfect. So you can install the app and you can have the schedule on your watch. The first activity this afternoon, and this slide doesn't give enough credit to this activity, but is a presentation by Heiko and Matthew. Heiko and Matthew are probably finishing their presentation right now, but we had a lot of feedback for them yesterday. But it's amazing. It's an amazing presentation. It goes well beyond the usual content that we give to you in terms of how to use basic API. It was designed for you experienced Pebble developers who want to go beyond the basic documentation and give you some interesting tips and ideas, and also show you how we build apps at Pebble. So the first topic that we'll cover is size, and we'll discuss size in a lot of ways, and I'll let them make the joke, but you'll see that it's important. And we'll discuss size, how to optimize your code size, how to optimize your resources size, how to use some very clever tricks with the compiler to save a little space in your app. It's a very interesting presentation. I strongly encourage everyone attends. The graphics presentation will include presentation on the frame buffer, where we'll show you how to use the new frame buffer API. But Heiko came up with some Amiga old school techniques for 2D programming, which I think are just amazing and blew me away. So I think you will enjoy that too. And this last talk, we weren't sure how to call it, so just put a bunch of ones and zeros. This last talk will be different demos of Heiko and Matt, who are some of our best engineers as far as 2D and graphics and building fast stuff on Pebble. And so they'll be showing you how they work, what tools they use to save time, how they prototype on their computer before moving it to Pebble. I think this will also be something that you'll be very interested in, because we got a lot of questions from you on what tools, what process, what workflow, and this should answer those. Tonight, after this presentation, so the presentation will end at 4, and then we will all take the Caltrain together. We tried buses, but it was going to take longer, so we'll do Caltrain. And we'll go up to San Francisco, and we're going to do the first in a long time. It's not really the first, but first in a long time, Pebble meetup with developers and with users. And the idea here is that we're going to talk all day today, but tonight you're going to be doing the work. Tonight you're the stars, you're the guys speaking. We have almost 170 or something like that people who registered to come to this event, so it's going to be very exciting. And we'll have users, we'll have some other developers, and we'd like to have you present the cool stuff that you've done, because lots of you have built really cool stuff. So we'll have some quick presentation, including a presentation on the Jawbone app, and then we'll have different, not lightning talks, but 5-minute, 2-minute talks about the stuff that you've built, also so that people can then come to you and talk to you about those things. So that's tonight. There are 2 Caltrain that leave from Mountain View and go to San Francisco that are good for us in terms of timing. The first one is 4:35, and the second one is 4:46. So we're going to be rushing you a little bit out of the venue tonight, so we can all go to San Francisco and be on time for the people who will be going there directly. This is also the opportunity for me to tell you that we love when Pebble developers meet and talk to each other. We would love to support more meetups around the world. If you want to start a meetup in your hometown, you should talk to Catherine. Is she here? Catherine is our event engineer. She's the one who coordinated this entire event today. And you can talk to her. We'd be happy to support your event with pizza, food, T-shirts, Pebbles, whatever we can think of, and also a lot of publicity so that it's successful. But we'd love to see more Pebble meetups around the world. Tomorrow morning, we're going to come back here around 10:30. No, we're going to come back here around 9:30. We're going to have breakfast, and then we'll start the presentation in this room at 10:30. And we'll start with a presentation by Stuart, who's one of our firmware engineers. And he has been leading a lot of the efforts that we've done recently on battery optimization, and especially understanding where the power, where the energy, rather, goes. And so Stuart will be sharing a lot of interesting stuff we've learned on the way that are not very obvious. And so you'll learn what actually takes battery on Pebble, what will have an impact on the battery life. You will learn better ways to do this, and you will even learn how much battery your app actually takes. So for some of the most popular apps, and we couldn't do it for everyone because it's statistics, so it only works if we have a big enough volume of data. But for a lot of apps, we looked at running those apps on Pebbles from the users, and we measured how much time are people using those apps able to use their battery. So that's something that we'll share with you, and that will give you a good idea of where you can improve your app if you're using a lot of battery. So that's tomorrow morning, 10:30. At 11, we will have another very interesting presentation that I know a few of you are very excited about. We'll be showing you a BLE API. And this BLE API is an experiment. We talked about BLE for a long time. It's something that people were already requesting last year at the developer retreat. I want to connect to BLE peripherals. And we were not sure whether we could do it, how it would look like, would it actually be useful. So we ended up doing it, or rather Martijn built it on a few weekends and nights. And now we want to share that with you, and we want to see if that's useful to you. We want to see what you build with it. And so Martijn will do a little talk in which he will introduce the BLE API. And then we'll have a bunch of BLE gadgets. So we have a heart rate monitor, we have a few iBeacons, we have some TI development board with buttons and LEDs and temperature sensors and stuff like that. Maybe James will bring his bike. If you have BLE gadgets, bring them tomorrow to this session, because we will give you a firmware that has support for BLE. And we'd like you to try connecting to those gadgets and give us feedback on this API. Is this what you need or not? So what you do with this API is up to you. Friday afternoon and all day Saturday, we're going to have a little activity that we started last year and worked really well that we call code reviews. So the idea is you sit down with a Pebble engineer and you show your source code, and we try to help. Sometimes we learn a lot of stuff on the way, but the key idea here is that we have a lot of experience writing C code. Most of us do that all day long. We also have a good idea of how to debug problems or how to optimize battery life, how to optimize performance. And there are a lot of Pebble engineers who signed up for those activities to be here and to be available to help you. So we will probably put them in the workshop room over there. You can go grab one, bring it back to your table, work on your app together, and hopefully this will really help you improve your app and get deep answer to all the questions that you have. Like if you don't understand why this API returns 1 instead of 2, then it's a good time to ask. We can even go look in the source code of the firmware to any question that you have and give you like really detailed answer. That worked really well last year, so we're going to do it again Friday afternoon and Saturday all day. On Friday afternoon, we're going to have a few other workshops. One of them is on CloudPebble. So I'm sure many of you know that since last year, Catherine joined Pebble. She's in the back. And Catherine has been doing a lot of work to keep on improving CloudPebble. And some of the recent improvements include the fact that we now have a UI editor in CloudPebble. We now have code completion on your app. And for you at the Dev Retreat, we also built a special CloudPebble, which is available at devretreat.cloudpebble.net, which uses the SDK 2.7. So if you want to use this new SDK in CloudPebble instead of installing it on your computer, you can also test the Wakeup API in CloudPebble. Of course, you also need the firmware, and the firmware will be available on GitHub. So we've done a lot of work on CloudPebble, and we have tons of ideas on ways to improve CloudPebble. But again, we'd like to get feedback from you. We'd like you to tell us what we need to do on CloudPebble, what you would like to see. Is it more debugging features, simulation? Nothing is out of the table. Come talk to us and tell us what you'd like to see there. At 3, we will have the Strap team. Can you stand up, guys? He's taking a picture of the slide where I'm talking about. So the Strap team came all the way from Austin to show you. Austin, right? Cincinnati, sorry. I have some progress in US geography to make, I'm sorry. So they came all the way from Cincinnati to show you Strap, which is a platform an analytics platform for wearable. And so it's very easy with Strap to add analytics to your app. I think their dashboard are definitely the best dashboard that you'll find for mobile apps at the moment. So if you're not doing any analytics in your app right now, you should come see what they have, see what it looks like, and talk to them, because they're also looking for feedback and ways to improve their product. At 3:30, Ron, where are you? Hey, Ron. Ron and Gregoire, where is Gregoire? Because Gregoire is also a big part of this. Came all the way from Korea and France to show you how you can load code from resources. So basically, they said, the 24K limit, I don't believe in it, and I'm going to break it. And they made this their life mission. And they sent me a lot of emails. And this is the result of their work. It's completely their work. But they found a way to take a binary and split it into several pieces, and then at runtime to load only a piece of the binary and not everything. So they can effectively break up an app into several pieces and then load only one piece at a time. And so they can make much bigger app than the 24K limit. So that's a very interesting presentation. It will also explain a lot about how the Pebble memory system works and how the build system with those W script file works. So if you're interested in all of this, I strongly suggest you come see what they did and look into it a little bit. At 4 tomorrow, we will have a little different type of workshop, this one on the Pebble name. So the Pebble name is getting more and more popular, and it's very, very popular in the App Store. There's a lot of Pebble something apps in the App Store. And so as we move forward, we want to try give a better experience for users. We want to make sure that when they look for an app, they don't have to type Pebble first. We want to make sure that the results from the App Store don't look all the same. And so we will start to enforce new rules on the App Store where the use of the Pebble name is going to become a no-go for new apps, and that's going to happen soon. And then the discussion is, for all of you who have apps that already use the Pebble name, we need to figure out what is the right transition. We need to discuss how we're going to take your app, make sure that it doesn't use the name Pebble at some point in the future, but also doesn't lose any users. And so we want to have this discussion with you here, and that will be Friday afternoon with our legal team. Christy, who's leading that project. That sounds scary, but Christy is a very nice person. So Christy will be in the room with me or Sherry, and we really want to get your feedback on those new rules and see how we can make that work for you. So especially if you have Pebble in the name of your app, please come. In the evening, we will go to the Computer History Museum. Who has been to the Computer History Museum before? Isn't it just the best museum ever? It is honestly my favorite museum on earth. And we have a few cool museums in Paris where I come from. The Computer History Museum has things such as this original Apple I signed by Woz in kit, a Cray computer that you can sit on. That's pretty cool. And this Babbage machine that was designed in the 1800s and built 20 years ago from the plans of the 19th century, and it actually works. It's an amazing museum. It goes all the way from counting in Egypt a few thousand years ago to modern computing, all the way through the 20th century, from taking the little punch cards and filtering them and sorting them, and to the computers used during the war, the different architectures. They talk a lot about analog computers. Who knew analog computers actually existed, and how they did multiplication, and all of this is explained, and it is just amazing. And so we rented the museum for the entire evening tomorrow. It will be ours. We will have food, and we will also have a lot of people from the Pebble team who could not be with us today and tomorrow, but they will join us tomorrow. So it will be a great time to chat and meet more Pebblers. So I certainly hope you'll choose to join us. Saturday is my fun day. So when I want to have fun, I like to build robots. I've done that for a long time now, and credit goes to the Node.js conference, the JSConf, actually JSConf. And they came up with this very cool idea of doing node bots. So there are bots controlled by Node.js. And so we're going to do Pebble bots. Bots controlled by Pebble, yeah. So we'll be distributing little kits to make those little robots. They're laser cut based on the open source plans shared by the Nodebots people. And on top of them, so we'll give you the motors, everything you need to build them. And on top of them, you'll have the choice between using a Wi-Fi module made by Spark, and they're really cool little Wi-Fi module, really easy to connect to, and perfect for that kind of application, and very easy to talk to from Pebble. So if you're interested in going back home and controlling your garage door, you'll learn everything you need to on Saturday as well. And if you are very, how would I say that? Adventurous and brave and really want to try something new, we will also have modules that are BLE modules that you connect to over BLE and that are basically Arduino with a BLE interface. So you'll be also able to control those little robots through the new BLE API that we're presenting tomorrow. So if you want to do the robots with BLE on Saturday, make sure you go to that talk tomorrow on BLE. So that should be a lot of fun. The idea is that we have about 20 kits for robots. So we're going to make groups of 2 and 3 people. And then we'll form teams, 3 robots on each side of the field. And we'll do soccer games. And we'll be playing with little golf balls. And you need to score by pushing the ball into the goal. And I've seen it before at JSConf. And it was one of the best moments of the conference. So I think this is going to be very exciting. And in the evening, we will have dinner here all together and ice cream from Cream, which is a very special ice cream place in Palo Alto. So we get all day to really work on this. And finally, Sunday morning, around 1, Sherry will be giving some Pebble awards to some of you for the most popular apps on the store, the most arty apps, the winner of the soccer competition. It will also be a way for us to say goodbye, everyone. We had a great time. Catch food together one last time, and then send you all home. So that's our plan for the next few days. And all of this is in the detailed schedule that was sent this week. And we'll make sure this little diagram is on the site as well. Just a few more minutes for logistics detail. This is the Post-it board from last year. Post-its is the way we love to collect feedbacks. And this is just one of the board because you can see it says more on back. We had more on the other side. I think I counted over 300 Post-it last year. And we had less than half the attendees that we have this year. So we certainly hope to get as much Post-it this year and even more. From all those Post-its, we counted 120 unique IDs, and over a third of them have been implemented yet. So have been implemented already during this year. So we haven't done everything yet, but we'd like to poll you and see, hey, what new IDs do you have? See if the same IDs come back again, and help us drive what we should do next year. So we took a bigger board this year. We have the entire wall on in the other room. It says feedback wall, and we have those themes. So firmware APIs, App Store, mobile apps, hardware, Pebble.js, phone to watch communication. We should have CloudPebble. I'll add CloudPebble. And we'd like you to take Post-its and write IDs whenever you have them and just put them on the wall so we can then go through this and make sure we capture everything. So every time you think about something and you're like, oh, I forgot and this is horrible, write it on a Post-it. Please put it on the wall and we'll use that to improve Pebble. Something we've learned from last year is that if you put your name on the Post-it, it helps a lot. Because sometimes we have a hard time reading or understanding the concept. It's so good that we're like, we need a little more time to understand. A little shameless plug. So Some of you are looking for a job or love their job, but they're thinking the weather is great in California. And that's what I did. And for those of you, we have Patrick. Patrick is back there. So Patrick loves to do activities with his Pebble. Don't ask me what he was doing, but he can tell you more about it. And Patrick will be around today and tomorrow evening at the Computer History Museum and maybe a little more over the weekend. So if you're interested in or would like to consider working at Pebble, the easiest way to do this is to go talk to Patrick and he can tell you all about how we work, what we do, and how to move forward in the process. That works for internships too. There is a little developer retreat exclusive content, and this developer retreat exclusive content will be available on our GitHub, on a special GitHub account called pebble-ax/devretreat14. We will invite all of you based on the GitHub account that you gave us this morning. That's why we were asking you for your GitHub account. And so you'll be able to download the firmware 2.7 with support for the Wakeup API. Tomorrow, after Martine's presentation, Martine will distribute the firmware and SDK for BLE API. It's not available yet. And we are also going to include something new, which is the Android 2.1 beta. And this is a pretty major release of the Android app. We haven't done a lot of changes to the Android app in the last few weeks. And I know some of you think that's because we really hate Android users. Well, that's not true. Eric is using an Android phone every day. I have switched to an Android phone recently. We love Android. There are a lot of people at Pebble who use Android. And we just needed a little time to rewrite things and make sure we could start on a solid base for the future. So that's what we've done. There are not a lot of new features, but we would like your help in testing this new build. It's ready for public usage. It will be released publicly as a beta next week or the following week, but we'd love to give it to you first so you can try it, and because you'll be here and the Android engineers will be here too, we'll be able to get your feedback right away and fix hopefully a bunch of bugs already. So that's the content that will be available to you this week. We did not ask you to sign an NDA this year. So I saw on Twitter last night that someone asked, is Pebble going to break the 8 apps limit? Can someone at the dev retreat tell me? And someone replied, I don't know yet, it hasn't started, but we would not be able to talk about it. So this is not true this year. You can talk about the stuff that we're going to show you. You can tweet about the presentation that we're going to do. You can talk about it on your blog. We want to encourage innovation. We want to encourage collaboration with the people here in Palo Alto or Mountain View, but also with the people that are home and are doing Pebble development and couldn't join us today. So those presentations will be recorded. This is actually being recorded. And they will be available on the internet. There's no secret in those presentations. We will also be distributing the 2.7 beta firmware to anyone who's interested. So if someone has an app, if one of your friends has a timer app and you know he would love to get this, just come talk to us and we'll make sure he has access to it. Or you can email devsupport@getpebble.com. And you can talk about the new APIs. You can say what we're doing here. We're not going to do the big secrecy things like we did last year. We don't think it's very useful. However, the one restriction that you sign is that you cannot redistribute the software that we give you during the developer retreat. So please do not take the firmware with BLE support or the new Android app and distribute it to your friend or send it outside of this little group here. That is the thing that is not okay, and that is why we asked you to sign those papers. That's because we want to make sure that when we extend those programs to more people, we also have the support and ability to collect the feedback, and that will be a different process. So that's it for this little introduction to the developer retreat. And I'll just have to tell you to enjoy your time here with us.